Welcome back, guys. As always, we are very proudly sponsored by 502 Media. Carolyn Dreyer is on the podcast today, and she is a two blog and podcast host. And we're going to dive into all of that as a former blogger and current podcaster myself. I can't wait. Hello, Carolyn. Hi. Okay, so let's just dive right into it. Why two blogs and a podcast?
Well, actually, the two blog story is kind of funny. So the first blog I created was Through the Dark, or no, that's my podcast, was Darkness to Dialogue, Living Well with Mental Illness.
Mm-hmm.
So I started that last year, and then I think it was in December. I was cleaning out like the cookies and the cache like on my browser and I cleared everything. So I was like locked out of my blog. I couldn't submit any new posts. Yeah. And because
Oh
it's on the
no.
Blogger platform, there's like no way you can get like any IT help. So I was like, oh my gosh. So luckily I have like a year's worth of content on there. So it's not the biggest deal. But I was like, what am I going to do? And it never got fixed. So I was like, well, I guess I'll just start a new blog, which after a year's time, I'm in a different space than the first
Right.
blog. So I thought, why not? So that's why I have two. And then for my podcast, I started that because I figured I want to advocate for mental health. So I need to do that on any platform I possibly can. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'll just start a podcast. And I get a lot of compliments on my voice, which I hate my voice. But I get a lot of compliments on my voice. So I was like, well, other people seem to like my voice, so it's
Mm-hmm.
probably going to be an okay idea. And I just, like I said, I want to talk about mental health everywhere, so that way I feel like I'm really fulfilling my purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. What made you so passionate about mental health? Was it watching somebody go through it? Was it your journey?
It was my journey mostly. I've probably struggled with my mental health since I would say like middle school. Looking
Mm-hmm.
back, I definitely was going through depression once I hit adolescence. And then anxiety is kind of always something that's been in the background for me as well. So I figured it's always good when you can have these avenues to talk about mental health, especially if it's coming from lived experience. And that's not to say that anyone else doing it who hasn't lived it is less credible or anything like that. But it's always nice to
Mm-hmm.
have content out there that's relatable. And it was helpful for me to speak out and not feel so much shame attached to some of my experiences.
Now, can you kind of walk me through a few of your experiences? I know you've really been through it in your life, and I know in real time you're working through some things. So, as much as you're comfortable talking about, what are some of your experiences that have contributed to your mental health?
Well, to start with, when I was a little bit younger, I think I've pinpointed that I had unprocessed grief that
Mm-hmm.
really ramped up the depression. When I was in high school, my grandmother passed away. And I saw her, she was like a second parent, basically. My mom and dad both worked full time for the
Mm-hmm.
most part. So my grandparents were like that second parental system for me. So I saw my grandmother like weekly, if not several times a week. And what
Yeah.
happened is she had a stroke and she ended up like recovering and was able to come home. But then I think it was like days later, she had to go back to the hospital and we were basically told like it's time to say goodbye. And
Ugh.
I had never seen anybody, but let alone my grandmother, like I'd never seen her in that state before. I don't think she was fully conscious. She had lost like a lot of weight and she just,
Mhm.
I'd never seen her like that. And I remember going into the room and crying. I think one of my uncles took me, and then after that, I really didn't talk about it. And that's mostly because of the way I was raised. Like, ugh, we weren't like a touchy-feely type of family, but it wasn't like
Right.
cold and prickly either. But I think the fact that it was my mom's mom. So I think at that age, I didn't want to make her feel more sad by talking about it. And then I just didn't know how to talk about it. So I grieved by sucking it up during the day, going to school, carrying on. When I got home from school, I would close my door, listen to sad music, which it's funny because at the time the Titanic was like really big.
Oh boy.
So so I had the Titanic soundtrack, but it was like it was like all instrumental music,
Oh.
but there was like some sad songs on there.
Hmm.
So I would listen to those songs on repeat, cry, write my journal, pack it up
Hmm.
next day, just carry on. So I think the start of my mental health challenges stemmed from unprocessed grief. I'm also adopted, so there's certainly a grieving process that you go through with that.
Right.
Um, and so I'll fast forward to college since it is April when we're recording this. It's Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
Mm.
I am a survivor of a sexual assault. Um, it happened at a house party. It was not affiliated with my college campus.
Mm.
It was on the other side of the state where I lived. A
Hmm.
friend of mine, we were at this house party. Um, there was drinking involved. And at some point in the night, she left to go drop her boyfriend off at home. Uh, Piece of advice, ladies, gentlemen, even if you come to the party with somebody,
Yeah, you don't leave them.
leave with them. If they leave
Yes.
without you, find a way to go, but don't, especially if it's, I didn't know most of the people there, but
Hmm.
yeah, piece of advice, leave with who you came with, or once they're gone, probably get out of there. But um, I'll kind of fast forward through some of this. I was
Yeah.
not conscious during the actual assault. When I regained consciousness from being so inebriated, I don't know if I was coming towards the end of what was being done to me, but I distinctly remember opening my eyes and
Hmm.
like coming to and realizing there was somebody naked. I was laying on a bed. This individual, I would assume, was like standing. Um, and when I realized what happened, I had the typical freeze response, but I
Hmm.
did cry and tears just were streaming down my face. And whoever was in there was alerted to the fact that I was awake. And the next thing I know, a light turned on, and there was more than one undressed individual in that room. I would say maybe like 4 or 5, but again, that's probably not like an accurate account. I heard someone say, "Oh shit," and then everyone scattered. So at some point, someone came in the room with me, and I'm like 95% sure it was somebody who went to my school. And he
Hmm.
sat with me. We tried to call my friend. Um, the next memory I have is her coming to pick me up. Now, this happened on Easter weekend, and we were supposed to go have Easter dinner with my parents on Easter Sunday. The assault probably happened late Saturday night, maybe
Hmm.
early morning hours of Sunday. So she comes to pick me up. We go to this diner for breakfast. I don't remember how much detail I told her, but I did let her know something happened. Like, why did you leave me? And her
Right.
response was, well, I hope you're not going to say this is my fault. And I don't recall how I responded to that. I really don't even recall much of what happened after that up until we got to my parents' house.
Mm-hmm.
But in hindsight, I find it to be a strange response. Knowing my own history and knowing this other individual, it's possible that there was a scenario in which a bunch of her guy friends are like, hey, do you have any single friends? I was a little bit of a wild child in college. Of course, that does not excuse what was done to me, but I'm pretty sure
Exactly.
it was communicated that I like to have a good time or like to party. So I'm going to leave that there because, again, me even sharing this story just to let people know it's not about, I'm not trying to get like any sort of vindication or retribution.
Right.
I don't know who these individuals were that did this to me. Um, and legally speaking, it's way beyond the time frame of, the
Yeah.
statute of limitations. Um, but there was always just that feeling of, was it a setup? So we go to my parents' house for Easter dinner. I did not breathe a word of what had
Mm-hmm.
happened. I didn't even shed a tear. I was pinching myself under the table to keep myself from crying. Made it through Easter dinner. We ended up back at our college campus. And I remember later that evening, a different friend brought me to the local YWCA where I had the exam done.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. They found a condom inside of me.
Ugh.
Yeah, and I think that was like the one of the first realizations of what had actually happened to me, and not only that, but the possible severity of it, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, I have to be honest, I thank God to this day, as crazy as this sounds, I thank God that I wasn't conscious. Um,
Yeah.
I have enough triggers and
Mm-hmm.
stuff from that night that I can't even imagine how I've recovered from it, knowing what was done to me.
Mm-hmm.
And God bless those survivors out there who have to face that after experience. Like, I can't even begin to imagine what that's like. Yeah. So, um, I had that exam done. I did not go to the police and report it to the police. I grew up in a very conservative religious household. I didn't have like the closest relationship with my parents, so the comfortability of sharing that with them was definitely not there. Number
Mm-hmm.
two, I was a drunk college student at a house party. We've seen real life and even how it portrays in movies. We see
Yeah.
how survivors are treated.
Mm-hmm.
I did not want to go through that experience. And then number three, I just wanted to move on. I just wanted to move on from it. I didn't want to have to be questioned, to be doubted, to be gaslit out of what I went through. Um, so the rest is actually history. I did several years later work up the courage to report it to the police, but it was past the statute of limitations at that point. It was kind of like a
Yeah.
re-trauma to have to go through that. Then I blame myself. Why didn't I report it?
Mm-hmm.
So that at that point in life was probably top five, one of the most major impacts on my mental health. Several months after attempted suicide, I had the note written out. I was going to take a bunch of pills, but I would say like divine intervention stopped that. It's interesting because part of the reason I chose to stay was because of my family. Even though I didn't have the closest relationship,
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about like, they're going to have to like, this is going to be a part of their life. Like, how sad for them to have to move on from this. And I'm glad I had something that kept me here.
Right.
But in hindsight, I was choosing to live for a family unit that I wished I had. If I don't know if that makes
Yeah.
any kind of sense.
That makes perfect sense.
Okay. And to be fair, look, my family, they are great people, very accomplished, very
Mhm.
kind, compassionate people. But in terms of like a family relationship, it's just not what I need as a person. And that's my
Right.
perspective and experience. But yeah, the sexual assault, I mean, and then I didn't go to therapy. So
Right.
you shove all that stuff down. My self-esteem was so crappy that that most definitely led to the unhealthiest of dating relationships.
Mhm.
Excuse me. I just remember though, when I didn't want to be here anymore, just that feeling of like desperation and like you feel like you're crawling inside of your skin.
Yep.
Like I don't know. I can't say I wanted to be dead necessarily, but I did not want to be in that moment and I just didn't see any way out of it cuz as usual, I mean that was just one thing that was going on and there was just so many
Right.
things on top of me that I get it. I get why people get to that point because I've experienced it, but I
Mhm.
get it. You can't breathe.
You,
Um,
you really can't.
you can't. It's like suffocating. It's so suffocating. So because of not dealing with the sexual assault, that quite definitely led me to my first abusive relationship.
Mhm.
Um, I had to have been around the age of like 19 or 20. I met this guy at a nightclub, worst choice to meet your future mate. Maybe some people have had success with this. I wouldn't recommend it personally. But I met this guy. He was charming, handsome, all of these things. Um, I ended up moving in with him very quickly.
Mhm.
I do believe I suffered from like anxious attachments back then for sure, which
Yeah.
definitely can cloud your judgment
Mhm.
with who's healthy and who's not. But as that relationship progressed, I noticed that he was very controlling, very possessive. Um, I can remember one time I had an outfit on that he didn't like. He told me I looked like a slut, go change your clothes, that type of vibe. Also, very very controlling and like strict about things. For example, like when I would have to vacuum the carpet, it would have to be in straight lines, like straight across, like yeah, straight lines. I
Okay.
still do it to this day. It's still and I vacuum like that to this day. I do. It's very
Mhm.
bizarre. But um this particular individual, so the first physical thing that he did to me was we had argued on this particular day. We were both going to a friend of his party. So I get to the party with his sister. He was already there. We had just argued. So I didn't say hi when I walked in. Because I personally, if I'm like mad at somebody, I don't really want them
Right.
to talk to me. So
Right.
he didn't like that. So he grabbed my arm, pulled me into the kitchen. Next thing I know, I'm up against the wall with his hand on my throat. And he says, "Don't you ever disrespect me like that again. You don't walk into a room or a party and not greet me." And that was the end of it. He backed away. We walked out of the kitchen. I got his sister and told her I want to go. Um, After that, later on down the line, he pushed me down in a parking lot. We were parked at our apartment. I don't remember what we had argued about, but when we got out of the car, he pushed me down in the parking lot. Um, and then the worst, well, it was all bad, but one of the worst most sick, evil things that he did to me another time was after intercourse, he defecated on me. And
Oh my
for
God.
listeners, defecated is the more politically correct way to say pooped. He pooped on me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, People probably wonder, well, how did this happen? Well, when you have been mentally and
Yep.
emotionally beaten below the earth, people can convince you to pretty much agree to anything. And again, that anxious attachment, if you love me, you'll do this for me,
Yep.
that type of thing. And he had already been physical with me at that point. So it's kind of like fear based, like, I better
Yeah.
do this, or I can't even imagine what's worse.
Yeah.
So he did that. He like had like this evil chuckle. We cleaned ourselves up and didn't talk about it again. And in fact, I didn't talk about that again until years later. I want to say maybe even like a decade later, because
Yeah.
how do you bring that? Well, you don't bring things up like that in conversation, obviously, but just
Right.
even to get it off, to get it like off my chest, like, how do you
Yeah.
say that to someone? And you need someone who's really going to understand how that's even possible. Because if you get the wrong
Mhm.
person, they're going to be like, oh, well, I would
Yeah.
never. Well, yeah, I said that too a lot of times.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
You they don't start off that way. It's a very gradual, it's like what is it, like the frog in the boiling water? Like they just
yep,
gradually turn the heat up until
yep,
you're boiling alive and you don't even realize what's going on. And I don't think people understand that is how DV
no,
works. You
yeah,
hear about it on the big, you know, on the bigger, more physical things, but nobody sees the months of controlling and manipulation and the things that, work their way up to the physical violence and the,
yep,
fear and the basically being held hostage in your own relationship kind of thing.
yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, I love how you explain that, because there were so many times in that relationship where it's like I wanted like help, help, like I wanted to ask for help. But yeah, it's like someone who's abducted and they take you to the store with them, and you have that window of opportunity to like flag somebody down, and then
Right.
when you miss it, it's gone, or they might catch you asking
Yeah.
for help, and you definitely don't want that happen. So that's like a
Yeah.
good explanation. Um
Yeah. How did you get out of that?
so well, believe it or not, he broke up with me.
Oh,
Surprisingly
how nice of
enough,
him.
yeah. Well, it was actually.
He
Um,
really did do you a favor.
he really did, honestly. He really did. Because I ended up getting my own apartment for the first time. I
Yeah.
re-enrolled back in school. So it was a favor to me, but yeah, I didn't break up with him. Um, and he actually tried to get back together with me, like I think months after we broke up. And we had a conversation, and I'm thinking like, do you not recall the relationship we were in?
No, they don't.
He totally didn't. He didn't.
They
And
think they do nothing wrong.
obviously, right. So obviously I didn't get back together with him, but yeah, I didn't go to therapy for that either. Moral of my
Mhm.
story, and to listeners out there, please, if therapy is not your thing, please at least find a supportive space or
Yes.
people you trust, because you can't keep that stuff in. You really can't.
No.
Um, and so that, what happened after that? After that, I was pretty much just cruising along, going through school, working. What was the next? The next major thing that happened would probably be um, the relationship I had with my son's father. So this is now like
Mhm.
when I'm in my 30s.
Yeah.
Um, well, I met him on some dating app. I don't want to say, it might have been Plenty of Fish.
We love the dating
or
apps.
those are just as bad as the nightclub, if not
They're
worse.
so. I'm like, this is what I have to work with. Are you sure?
Oh,
Are you positive?
it's it's a nightmare. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh. And again, this individual right off the bat, I would not have known how things were going to pan out in that situation. He was
Right.
very charming, articulate, handsome, all these things. Again, a fast mover in the relationship. I moved in with him pretty quickly, and he was actually a rebound relationship. Um, and so I moved in. This is when I lived in Florida. So he lived like right across from the ocean, had like
Oh.
this beautiful view on the balcony. So nice,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, as that relationship progressed, same thing. Little signs of like control,
Yeah.
possessiveness. If we're out in public, you better be looking straight ahead. I was just like, why are you looking at him? What are you doing?
Oh my
Um,
God.
he even went so far as to like scold me for looking out the window. Yeah.
I'm gonna need these
Yeah.
men to get a grip.
Seriously, I
Like,
was looking at some turtles outside.
and like, I am not making light of domestic violence at all and
No, I
controlling men,
know.
but like, you hear these things, and especially when you're out of the situation, and
Yep.
when you're in it, you're just like, okay, like I won't look. But then when you're out of it, you're like,
Yeah.
get a hobby, like take up knitting, something. Like, why? Like, what
Yes.
is so inadequate about you that you feel the need to belittle and control your partner to that degree?
Exactly. Exactly. And it was just looking out the window. And to this day,
Right.
like I will just literally sit and just look out the window just because at one point in my life, like that wasn't like a luxury or freedom
Right.
that I had. And his big thing was he was always accusing me of cheating. Hindsight, I'm sure he was the one being the
Yeah,
cheater.
I was just gonna say nobody brings it up that much if they're not doing it in the opposite
Right.
direction.
Right. So I ended up getting pregnant. I don't want to say it was unplanned. It definitely wasn't planned though either, but it was something we
Right.
had talked about and wanted. Um, and that's when like the mental and emotional abuse really escalated. He never got physical with me, except he did throw something at me while I was pregnant, actually. We were arguing in the car at the grocery store. And
Mm.
so he got out of the car. Before I even had a chance to get out of the car, he said something to me and then took one of those hairbrushes without like the handle, and they're like made of real wood on the back.
Yep.
And he threw it into the back seat. I felt it fly right past my face.
Ugh.
And at that instant, now there were red flags before that where I was kind of
Right.
like, I don't know if this is working, but that definitely was a
Yeah.
defining moment because I'm like, you're a 30 something year old man. And on your list of conflict resolution is to throw something. Like, I have a huge problem
Mhm.
with that. I know how to resolve conflict, and it does not include throwing stuff at people
Mhm.
unless, a self-defense situation, but generally I'm not choosing that as an option. And so from that moment on, I slowly started to build up a plan to get out of that relationship. And in this situation, I had to plan it because I know for 100% fact, if he had found out that I was trying to move out,
Yeah.
well, a couple of things. I would most definitely have been held hostage in some shape or form. And number two, I think I could have been killed in
Yeah.
hindsight. I really do think it could have escalated to that. Um,
Mhm.
and so I talked with friends at work. I found someone who had a spare bedroom. Um, I think, I want to say when he wasn't home, I would slowly pack stuff like in my duffel bags and stuff because I had moved into his place. So had like suitcases and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But there was one night in particular where he was out for the night. He had a son from a different relationship who lived with us mostly full time. He had been in the shower. So I took my opportunity. Now, mind you, I think at this point I'm like 4 or 5 months pregnant. So
Yeah.
I'm lugging a duffel bag and I think some other luggage down the stairs and putting it in my car so that way in the morning I could just leave and never come back.
Yeah.
So I did that. I packed my car the next morning. I got up for work as usual, left for work. When I got in my car, I sent him like a long text message, probably saying, like, don't contact me, or I don't know what I said. And I went off to work. And after work, I moved into my friend's place. I do
Mhm.
know he was blowing up my phone. Um, we were having a child together. So, yes, I did. I don't want to say we got full on back together, but I would say we were trying to like reconcile, if you will.
Right.
Um, and the rest is he caused so much havoc for me. Just it was
Yeah.
just mostly phone calls with accusations, like who have you been talking to and whose towel
Mhm.
is this in the shower? And at one point he told me he had like some hidden cameras and like hidden microphones in his home, and he had the recording box was going to be unscrambled by some uncle that was in the FBI, like the most outlandish story. Now,
Oh
mind you,
my
I have a
God.
master's in forensic psychology and a degree in criminal justice. So, a bunch of the stuff that he was saying, I'm like, this is not an airplane. It's not a black box that you
Yeah.
unscramble like on an airplane. If you're recording somebody, unless it's like in like a what do they call it, like a cryptic mode or some other
Yeah,
whatever, you're
kind
not
of.
unscrambling these things. Like that's not even a thing. Um
Right.
so I'm kind of jumping around here. I end up having
Oh,
our
you're
son.
fine.
Because literally if I told everything, we'd be on here for hours.
Oh,
Um,
I'm sure.
so I have my son. He wasn't
Mhm.
there for the birth. Um, now after I had my son, he saw him one time, didn't remember what his name was during a phone call that we had.
Oh my gosh.
Um, yeah, this he even sent a life insurance sales rep to my house, okay? So she's now he wanted to put me and his son on life insurance, something like that. So this young lady comes in, is asking me these questions. She proceeds to say, so your son, this is his godson. I was like, come again? I was like, did you say godson? I was like, no, this is his son. This is his child. And after that, I was like, you know what? I really appreciate the information, but I think it's time for you
Yeah.
to go. I'm pretty sure that he knew this young lady. I'm pretty sure he knew her. I think he sent her there to suss out, the living situation and all of that because probably, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months later, I decided to file for child support.
Mhm.
Now, he did not like that I did that. So, in retaliation, he reported me to family services and alleged that I was physically inappropriate with his other son who had been living with us. I think he had to have been nine, between the ages of like 8 and 10. And I remember when I was living with him, there was one night in particular, he wanted his son to sleep on the floor of our bedroom because his room was too cold. I didn't think
Mhm.
anything of it. His son slept on the floor. In hindsight, that was part of the plan. I do believe that was part of the plan. So I had child services show up at my door.
Yeah.
Um, they came and they were like, yeah, we're here. And I was like, I already know why you're here, because he had sent me some weird threatening emails prior to that, like saying, I know what you did. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And you're going to get in trouble. So the family services lady told me what he was alleging. And then a police detective was involved.
Right.
And so she shows up at my house. I have my infant son, pre-toddler, sitting on my lap. Ma'am, can we do a DNA swab of you and your son? I'm like, sure. Well, we're just trying to rule out that your son's father is really the father. They were trying to rule out that my
Oh my
son
God.
was not the product of me being inappropriate with a child. This is actually the most in detail I've described this, because I've carried a lot of shame with this
What?
experience. Yes, girl, because you know why?
That took a hot minute for my brain to register. I'm so sorry. What?
Yes. 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 Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, take a
I
minute.
don't think I
Yeah,
have words for that.
it's it's bananas, for a nice way to to
I
label that. It is a very good example of post separation abuse, and it is a very good example of how people use
yeah.
law enforcement and the courts to, punish people or whatever, wreak havoc on
Yeah.
their life. Yeah,
Right. No,
that's
it's very, very typical. That's so far of a reach that my brain was like, oh, of course he's like trying to say now he's not the father of your son. And then I'm like, wait, what? And then my brain's like, no, that's
yeah,
not what she just said. And I'm like, oh,
yeah. It's insane. It's insane. And to this day, I don't know the specifics of the allegations that were made. I didn't ask because I didn't do anything, so I don't really care what he's alleging, but it had to have been pretty bad for them to try to figure out the paternity of my child, which, by the way, at that point was already established. But yeah, it's something that I didn't talk about for a long time, because it was, well, for one thing, it was extremely embarrassing to call my family and be like, hey, by the way, someone's going to be interviewing you because I've been alleged of such, this egregious thing. And
mhm.
I decided to start speaking out about it, well, for a couple reasons: for my own peace of mind and healing process, but also so that anybody out there who's going through something similar decides to not carry shame and like embarrassment and stuff with that. Because you're only as sick as your secrets, and that's like the truest statement. That doesn't mean, go blab to the world, but when you stuff
Yeah.
that stuff in, it's a secret and people don't know it's a secret. And I have been physically ill, not like with any sort of disease, but just like physically ill, just like stomach problems, headaches, acne. And secrets make you sick. And
Yeah.
it's just, it's that to this. I have a lot of post traumatic stress from that particular situation. For example, doorbells, knocks on the door terrify
Mhm.
me, because I'm
Yeah.
wondering what the heck's on the other side of that. Phone calls, I can't have like my ringer on or anything like that, because notifications just make me think of like bad news is coming. And
Yeah.
just, it took me a long time, and to this day, until I leave this earth, I will never feel safe from his father.
Yeah.
um because the thing with people like that, now I haven't spoken to his father in like several years. But the
Right.
thing about people like that is time does not heal all wounds. Time
Nope.
makes them even more pissed off, even more resentful, even
Mhm.
more vindictive. And
Yep.
I'm low key terrified of him. Now, I keep it in check because I obviously have to live life and leave my house and interact with others. I have a child, and my son is a big reason why I don't crawl into that shell anymore, because I can't have my son learning that we shut ourselves in out, we keep the outside world away from us. We don't trust others. Obviously, I have to teach him a healthy way to trust. But if it were up to me, I would be a hermit in the house. I would just nod at people and not speak to them. But I can't teach my son to grow up and be like that. I want him to speak to others. And so, my son's a big reason why I get up every morning, why I continue through the hard days. But it's it's hard to live with, because not only is this my story, this is my son's story.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go there. I don't want to cry on this interview, but it's hard. It's
Cry
hard.
away if you gotta.
It's hard that there's some really harsh, nasty parts of his story.
Yeah.
And I just have to take that part of my life a day at a time. He knows that he has a father, obviously. I don't speak negatively about his father. Like, I'm not bashing him. However, he does have a realistic perspective that his father is not safe for us to be around.
Right.
Now, when my son is, 17, 18, if he wants to meet his father, and I'm able to make that happen, I'm not going to stop that from happening. Because he has a right to know his father and make those decisions for himself. However, at this time, while my son is like so impressionable and happy and just a normal kid, for as normal is, I just can't, and it's just not safe. I even actually have, where I live, there's a family violence protection order, or like label on my child support case, indicating that, this is, and thank God for that. Like, I had to live through a lot of years of hell just to get that tiny, tiny piece of peace. And although it's just like a label on a computer, survivors will probably understand, like, it's a huge sense of like safety and relief for me in some regards. But certainly to this day, if there's a weird car on my street, or if there was a lady filming me in a store actually a couple weeks ago, and I had yeah, it was so weird. I'm not quite sure what was happening there, but things like that trigger me and send me into a panic, because I don't know if he's out there looking for me. Stranger things have happened. So it's just, your sense of safety is just really effed up when you have survived things like that. And you just have to take things a day at a time. I have to remind myself that not everyone is the enemy, that there are people out there who are positive and supportive. But so that's been something I'll probably have to overcome for the rest of my life. Other than that, it's just, I'm also a divorcee. So I've been through that as well.
Welcome to the club. It's not fun.
No, it's not. I will say, excuse me, my divorce went rather smoothly. Like, I didn't get any fight out of my ex. Like, he didn't sign the court paperwork at first, but then I had it resent and everything was taken care of. Haven't heard from him since. That's probably a story for a totally different type of episode. But yeah, divorce it's terrible, especially if you don't. At the time, I was living in a friend's bedroom in Pennsylvania, and I wasn't really talking to my family. This was like, I've been divorced for haven't really kept track, but it's been a few years.
Right.
um, sometimes I forget I am divorced or that I was ever married before. But it was another mental health challenge because I have my
Yeah.
son, I'm trying to work. I don't have like a lot of support. And so I truly had to learn how to lean on myself.
Yeah.
And that is such like a liberating thing. It's very
It
challenging
really
and it's a
is.
lot of nights of crying yourself to sleep, giving yourself hugs, talking to yourself in the mirror, giving pep talks. But did you
Yep.
find that experience?
So my divorce was a lot different than most. It was very amicable. It was very I could not have divorced a better person. I bitch about him a lot at times, but overall it could have been so much worse. So having an ex-husband that was still cared about me as a human was definitely like a huge one. Like we definitely still had mutual respect and for each other. I still really respect him as a person, yada yada. Um, but yeah, I think the whole I have to start over was terrifying. It was
Yeah.
1,000,000,000% worth it. And I would not trade this, like, I don't want to say freedom because a marriage is supposed to be a version of freedom, not divorce. So if divorce feels like freedom, then you married the wrong person. Um,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
In my
Yeah.
opinion. Um, but there was like I wouldn't trade that like freedom of just being able to start over and be who I needed to be for
Yeah.
the world. Um, but there were a lot of nights where I, yes, cried myself to sleep and I'm just like, how the hell am I gonna make this work? But I knew I was going to. I didn't know how, but I knew
Yeah.
I was going to make it work. And once I did,
Yeah.
and it's been a little bit of a struggle, especially since you know a lot of the 99% of the divorce agreement has, the terms have come to an end, and where
Okay.
I'm completely like financially on my own and stuff like that. That's been a little bit of a struggle, but we did it. We're doing it,
Yeah.
and we're doing our best to work through that. But yeah, there's a lot of having to, you're gonna be okay, bitch, you've done it
Yeah.
once, you can do it again. There's a lot of that.
Yeah. Exactly. Totally. There is. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think I learned a lot more about how to deal with my mental health through all of these
Yes.
challenges. And
Hmm.
something I'm realizing is for me, I've been stuck, not here recently, but certainly probably in the past several years, I have been stuck in a place of like self-awareness and that's all it was. Like I've always been like an introspective
Yep.
person and self-aware, but I didn't know that once you do become self-aware, you're supposed to add some actions in there to kind of get things
Yeah.
off and running. So I because I was stuck in that self-awareness mode, I think it also kept me in survival mode
Hmm.
because I'm like, okay, this is why I'm feeling anxious, or this is why I have this resentment. And then I just kind of left it at that and then went
Yeah.
on my way to survival mode. Whereas
Yep.
once you become self aware and find ways to work on it, improve it, whatever you have to do,
Yeah.
it's a little bit easier to start getting out of that survival mode and getting into like thrive mode. That's like so
Hmm.
corny, but
Yeah.
um
It
yeah.
works.
Yeah, you learn how to like really start living. And here recently, I'm definitely learning that you get those calm spots in life, but
Hmm.
once you learn those new skills, you better believe God, the universe, whatever you believe in,
Yep.
they're going to throw those tests in your path to let
Every
you
time.
start using those skills.
I'm like,
And
I don't want to practically apply this. Can we not?
no, no, seriously. And it's like actually 2 months ago, a very dear friend of mine unexpectedly passed away.
I'm so
And
sorry.
Thank you. And it's like I told myself, like, when I found out the news, I'm like, we got this. We've processed grief. We've learned how to process grief. We learned these skills. And I was kidding myself that, oh, it's going to be easier this time. And it is in
No.
some ways, but it becomes harder and challenging in new ways
Yes.
than you had before. And I will be perfectly honest and transparent. Have I been 100% tackling that grief? No, because I have a million other things on the list to deal with.
You know what? Show me a person that has perfected the art of grieving properly, and then
Right.
we can beat ourselves up about how we process grief.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can start a club. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. And every experience is different. I mean, I
Mhm.
hadn't, this individual who passed away, he is somebody that I met when I lived in Florida before I was pregnant with my son. But when I did get pregnant with my son, he and his ex-wife, as his ex, well, he's no longer here, but they were married at the time. Both of
Mhm.
them got me baby things. Like, for a time, I thought they were going to kidnap my baby when I had it because they were so nice. And I was in such a distrusting place in my life. I was like,
I
oh my
mean,
God, these
valid.
people, I was like, these
Yeah.
people, they want to steal my baby. They're giving me all these things. And it's sad. It's funny, but sad that I felt that way.
Yeah.
But they were truly, when you say like good, salt of the earth, truly genuine, wholesome people, that was
Mhm.
them. And he was like Uncle Al to my son. They babysat my
Mhm.
son when I was at work. Um, he made a DVD for me of like my baby shower and like the birth and all that stuff. And after I had my son, I didn't watch it for maybe 2 or 3 years because of the trauma that I went through with my son's father.
Yeah.
Just those days of my son being a baby were so painful and hard to
Yeah.
revisit. But now I'm so thankful for that DVD. I haven't
Mhm.
watched it, rewatched it yet because it's going to bring back all those memories and stuff. But I'm thankful to have that piece of him. Um, and so, yeah, we'll see how that goes. And I've been dealing with some physical injuries, which, look,
Yeah.
mental challenges, bring them on, dump them in a bucket. I can handle that. But the physical injury thing and how that plays on your mental health,
Mhm.
um, I'm now learning to kind of navigate that. The injury I have is in my arm.
Yeah.
So I'm a blogger, I'm a writer. So that's
Mhm.
been extremely hard for me to cope with that. And I can't be a busybody like I want to be,
Right.
which is actually good because I think this is God's way of telling me, look, lady, I've been trying to get you to sit down and take it easy for the past 20 years. Now
Now's
you're
the
not
time.
running from me anymore, and now's the time.
Yep.
So that's a big hit on my self-esteem to not be able to like get up and work and do and create. But
Mhm.
I also have to appreciate that my self-worth is not based upon, how many blogs I'm producing and that type of thing. So it's all
Mhm.
just been a learning process. So
Oh, I mean, life is constantly a learning process, but you've learned quite a bit. Like those have been some
yeah,
hard experiences, and I don't even want to say lessons because I don't know what you learn from assault and domestic violence. So I wouldn't even say that that's like a lesson, but those are some
yeah.
incredibly hard experiences that nobody should have to go through, and I am so sorry that you've experienced that. I'm so glad that you've been on today. And before I let you go, what is your blog name and where can we find it?
All right. So my blog name is Darkness and Recovery, and you can find it on darknessandrecovery.blogspot.com. If
Mhm.
I'm on every social media platform,
Yep.
so like Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, everywhere, and you can get access to my blog on any one of those platforms.
And then we can catch your podcast, which is Through the Darkness, a mental health recovery podcast anywhere you get podcasts, correct?
For now, it's just on Apple, Spotify, and Podbean, and then I release monthly episodes for that.
Perfect. Carolyn, again, you have quite the story, and I am so, so grateful that you took the time out today to talk to us about it. Hopefully, if anybody gets anything out of this, it's that you are not alone on any of this. And if you have experienced a mental health crisis, please call or text 988. And I will link the hotlines for both the domestic violence and sexual assault hotlines down in the episode description below for anybody that does need them. Carolyn, again, thank you so, so much for coming on and sharing your story.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
And as usual, guys, we will see you next week. Stay hot, and most importantly, stay messy.